What if the most dangerous moment of your life wasn't a public battle, but a private one fought in the dark where no one was watching? We often think of heroes as people who step onto a stage fully formed, but the truth is usually buried in the dirt of a lonely valley. Long before he was a king, long before he was a giant slayer, he was a boy left alone with a flock and a shadow. The roar you hear in the distance isn't coming from an army, it's coming from a predator. And how this young shepherd responds in the next 10 seconds will determine the fate of a nation centuries before he ever wears a crown. We're going beyond the dust to find the warrior who was forged in the silence of the hills. History remembers David as the Golden King of Israel, the poet-warrior whose name is synonymous with victory. But in the beginning, David was an afterthought. To understand the man, we have to travel to the rugged limestone hills of Bethlehem. This isn't the postcard version of a peaceful countryside. This was a frontier, a place of scorching days, freezing nights, and the constant threat of predators. Imagine a boy, likely no older than 15, standing in the silver light of a Judean moon. The air is cold, and the only sound is the rhythmic breathing of sheep. Then, the wind changes. A low, guttural vibration rattles the air. A lion, driven by hunger, emerges from the brush. In this moment, David doesn't run. He doesn't have an army behind him. He doesn't have royal armor. He has a staff, a sling, and a heart that has already decided who it belongs to. This wasn't just a physical fight. It was the classroom of a king. When he stepped toward that lion, he was learning that the size of the enemy is irrelevant when you know the scale of your protector. This was the hidden preparation. The victory in the valley of Elah was won years earlier in the shadows of Bethlehem. If you want to understand how a boy kills a giant, you have to look at how he defended the least of these when no one was looking. But while David was finding his strength in the wilderness, his family life was a different kind of struggle. One afternoon, the routine of the village is shattered by the arrival of the prophet Samuel. This is a man whose word can topple kings, and he has come to Bethlehem with a horn of oil to anoint the next leader of Israel. The tension in the house of Jesse is palpable. David's older brothers are brought out. Men like Eliab, who are tall, muscular, and look exactly like what a king should look like. They are seasoned, they are impressive, and they are confident. Yet, one by one, the oil stays in the horn. Samuel is confused, but the voice of God is clear. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It is a staggering statement that redefines leadership for all of history. Where is the youngest? Jesse had almost forgotten him. David is brought in from the fields, smelling of wool and dust, his hair windblown and his skin darkened by the sun. He is the unlikely choice, the one the world overlooked, yet he is the one the oil is poured for. This anointing didn't change his circumstances immediately. He went right back to the sheep. But it changed his spirit. He carried the weight of a kingdom in his heart, while he still carried a shepherd's crook in his hand. The true test of that heart comes in a place called the Valley of Elah. The visual scale of this moment is terrifying. 2 ridges, 2 armies, and a deep ravine between them. The Philistines, a technologically advanced and brutal society, have brought a secret weapon. From their ranks steps a man who seems to defy biology, Goliath of Gath. He is nearly 10 feet tall, draped in bronze-scale armor that glitters like a serpent in the sun. His spear is the size of a weaver's beam. For 40 days, he stands in the valley and roars. This wasn't just a challenge to fight, it was psychological warfare. Goliath's voice echoed off the canyon walls, mocking the God of Israel and paralyzing the seasoned soldiers of King Saul. Fear is a contagion, and it had infected every tent in the Israelite camp. Even the king, a head taller than his peers, is hiding. The atmosphere is thick with the smell of wood smoke and cowardice. Into this environment walks David, bringing supplies to his brothers. He doesn't see a monster. He sees a boundary crosser who is defying the living God. While the professionals were measuring Goliath's height, the shepherd was measuring the giant against the greatness of his God. The conversation between David and King Saul is a study in the clash of worldviews. Saul offers his armor, heavy, bronze, and prestigious. David tries it on, but he can barely move. He realizes he cannot fight a new battle with someone else's tools. He rejects the palace gear and reaches for what he knows. He goes down to the brook, the water rushing over the stones, a sound of peace in the middle of a war zone. He reaches into the water and selects 5 smooth stones. Why 5? Some say because Goliath had 4 brothers. David wasn't just planning for a victory, he was prepared for a total conquest. The climax of this journey is a study in contrast. The giant moves forward, his heavy armor clanking, his voice a thunder of insults. David runs toward him. He doesn't walk, he charges. The sound design of this moment is focused. The whistling of the sling, the rushing wind, and the sudden, sharp crack of stone meeting bone. The trajectory is perfect, not because of David's aim alone, but because the hand of the shepherd was guiding the hand of the boy. The giant falls, and the silence that follows is the sound of a paradigm shifting. The dust of the valley settles on a new reality. The boy who defended the sheep has become the man who will lead the nation. As David stands in the quiet of the valley after the dust settles, he isn't looking at the fallen giant. He is looking at the horizon. He knows that this victory is just the beginning of a much longer, more difficult road toward the throne. The Valley of Elah proved that the invisible preparation of the heart is more powerful than the visible strength of an empire. But the trials of faith do not end with a single victory. The shadow of the valley takes many forms, and sometimes the greatest test isn't a giant you can see, but a silence you have to endure. Next time, we leave the hills of Israel for the cold, stone corridors of the Persian Empire. We will meet a man whose integrity became his death warrant, walking into a pit of hunger and teeth. We go to Babylon to witness the silence of the lions and the man who stood firm when the world told him to bow. If you want to see how the heroes of the past can show us the way through our own valleys, join us for the next expedition. The promise remains, and the journey continues.